Hello, everybody out there in internet land. I'm Colin McKay for the Music and History Channel, and today I'm going to talk about one of my personal favorites, Johnny Winter. Saw him over 24 times, just lightning and magic all at the same time. But today's story is about a very specific moment in Johnny's career when he was making an album called, ultimately, The Winter of '88, from 1988. And let's get into the story right now. Okay, so Johnny Winter had been around since the late 60s, making records for Columbia Records and his own imprint label, Blue Sky. And for Johnny, there was always a push and pull between blues music and commercial rock music of the time. And his management, his record companies were constantly pushing him to be sort of the next Jimi Hendrix, a pop star, a sensation with his albino looks and his white hair and his flamboyant stage appearance. It just seemed like a no-brainer. But in Johnny's heart, he wanted to play the blues. Over his career, he makes various compromises with material, the sound of the recordings, different musicians that he's playing. And in the 80s, he had been making three records for Alligator Records, strictly a blues label out of Chicago. But his manager, Teddy Slattis, really still always had envisionments of Johnny, just achieving mass pop stardom, if you will. But in the 80s, there had been a subtle change in the musical landscape as far as blues music goes, with the popular success of ZZ Top and their Eliminator record, which sold 15 million copies. And you had Stevie Ray Vaughan, the Fabulous Thunderbirds, George Thorogood, all selling pretty good amount of records and concerts, playing blues-orientated music, if not hardcore, strict blues. And Johnny Winter and his manager, Teddy Slattis, they wanted to get in on that. Figured Johnny was, they were his disciples. He was the mentor to many of these artists and groups. And he wanted to capitalize in on that. Yeah. So they hired Terry Manning, who had engineered ZZ Top, George Thorogood, the Fabulous Thunderbirds, and produced Bad to the Bone for George Thorogood. So he seemed to be the man to bring Johnny into the forefront of commerciality while still keeping his blues roots. But alas, the winter of '88, it was not to be. This was MCA Records. So it was a major label, major distribution. The idea was that, 2/3 of the album could be whatever Johnny wanted, and the final third has got to be some hits. So Terry was brought in to contemporize the sound, whether it was the drum sound, the guitar tones, the certain songs, harmony singing, things that you could say result in more mass appeal of music. But Johnny and Terry did not get along. Johnny did not like Terry running his guitar amp from one amplifier to another amplifier in a daisy chain effect using a Marshall stack. He didn't like the drums being, the snare drum being triggered with a drum snare sample, classic technique in the 1980s. And the harmony singing, Johnny wasn't there for the mixing. He didn't like any of this. And this was not the first attempt to make Johnny more commercial, but he figures in retrospect that was just the worst experience, although Terry Manning says Johnny was totally aware of what was going on and what it takes to make a contemporary record. He just ultimately chose not to enjoy the experience. MCA Records was a one-album deal. That was the end of it. Johnny went on to a label called Point Blank, where he made a couple more albums that were very much straight-up blues affairs, near and dear to his heart. So that is just a short tale about the winter of '88. Great title, but sadly not one of the better albums in Johnny's canon and discography of music. And it does serve to highlight the idea of pure music and commerciality. How do they mix? Johnny Winter, Texas blues guitar legend. I hope you enjoyed that short story. And if you did and want to hear more, please subscribe to the Music and History Channel. I'm Colin McKay. Have a great day.